Tonight's a Guatemalan national convicted of crashing into and killing NFL linebacker Edwin Jackson and his Uber driver is now facing an even longer jail term for illegally re-entering the U.S. after being deported. Let's bring in the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Indiana for more on the case. Josh Winkler, great to have you with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so this individual was apparently deported a couple of times before, had faced criminal charges and conviction in California before this horrible, tragic accident that took two people's lives. So he was already convicted and sentenced on that. So why, when he's already behind bars for years, did you feel it was necessary to go ahead with these additional charges?
Well, Shannon, we're a nation of laws, and there needs to be real consequences for violating those laws. My office is firmly committed to enforcing the immigration laws of this country. As you pointed out, Mr. Zavala he's been deported twice previously for violating the laws of this country. He came back, he committed a very serious crime, but one of the real aggravating factors is he never should have been here in the first place. So my office took the stance that he needed to be prosecuted for illegally re-entering this country after being deported. And earlier this week, he was convicted on those charges, and he was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison. That prison sentence will be consecutive. That means on top of the state sentence he is serving, which is a 16-year sentence. So once he gets out of Indiana prison for that 16-year sentence, he'll be turned over to a federal prison and serve an additional 3.5 years.
You know, we've got some polling numbers when people are asked about whether illegal immigrants should be deported, whether they've committed a serious crime. 45% said yes, any crime, 26%, deport all of them, 25%. There's still a split in this country among those who think that there should be mass deportations, or that this administration or federal authorities should be focusing on any specific people. How complicated does this issue of illegal immigration make your job in prosecuting other crimes as a federal attorney?
Sure. Well, as a federal prosecutor now for 24 years, I can tell you that illegal immigration is a problem. It's a problem here in the Midwest. It's a problem here in Indiana, and it represents a very serious public safety risk. And this case illustrates it. This individual should have never been in the country in the first place. He represented a public safety risk to the citizens of Indianapolis, and eventually two men, Indianapolis Colts linebacker Edward Jackson and an Uber driver, Jeff Monroe, lost their lives because of it. It has real consequences here in the Midwest, and that's why my office is firmly committed to aggressively prosecuting the immigration laws of our country.
You know, we hear these cases quite a bit, and not necessarily the grave consequences as we heard in this case, but of people repeatedly being deported from this country and repeatedly returning. You talk about prosecution. What else can be done about this issue? I mean, a lot of folks think Congress has a lot of work to do. The parties can't get together. In the meantime, are you left with using what's already on the books? Would it be helpful to you to have any additional measures on the books?
Certainly. We do enforce the laws on the books. Those are great laws, and I'm in the enforcement business. I'm not in the lawmaking business. What's obvious in this case is Mr. Zavala will have to serve a long sentence. He'll have to serve 19.5 years, but he'll eventually get out. He will be deported again. He will be sent back to Guatemala again. And certainly it's my hope, and the hope, I think, of everybody in law enforcement, that reasonable measures will be taken to prevent him from coming back in this country again and putting the people at risk.
Well, it's a case that most certainly sends a message, and our hearts go out to these two families who are suffering because of what happened here. And an interesting take to see this additional sentencing on top of that. U.S. Attorney Josh Winkler, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.